Hello everyone, and welcome to episode 12. The time has come to sort out our power issues. We've been struggling to keep the lights on for at least 2 or 3 videos now, and it really has to stop. These logistics towers are incredibly power hungry, and there are only 2 ways to deal with that. Either make the logistics bots carry more stuff, so they need to make fewer trips, lowering the consumption overall. Or the second way, where we simply increase the amount of power available. Today, we will endeavor to do both. We will research the upgrades for our drones and vessels, as well as introduce fusion power onto our planetary power network. This will pretty much take up the entirety of the episode, and we will just barely finish things up by the end. Before we get started, I would love it if you subscribe to the channel, and clicking the like button will let me know that this video was worth making. If you want to help me make a living off this one day, please consider becoming a channel member, where you will get an early access to the videos as I make them. And for a one-time donation, you can find a link to my Ko-fi page in the description. But enough talking, let's get into it. Okay. Just as I loaded up the game, I immediately noticed that one of the enemy outposts were close to filling its threat meter, so it was time to calm them down a bit. This of course means that we will go there, raise the base to the ground, and let them start over from scratch. I really need to check up on the different missile turrets littered around the star system. They bound to be running low on rockets by now. Okay, with that taken care of, we can go home, and start working on the important stuff. And I can already tell you, all the power shortages will result in painfully slow crafting rates in our industries, so we will need to make a lot of back and forth as we try to sort things out. As I've said in the intro, we will just about manage to wrap things up at the very end of the episode. Basically, we have 2 major goals for today. We need to start making Deuteron fuel cells, a very potent source of energy, as well as fusion reactors, which will consume those rods, and turn them into some much needed electrical power. One of the components for these fuel cells are these blue magnets, so we need to put them onto the logistics network. We could set up a temporary section in the starter base, but we will need these cells in massive quantities for the end game, so it's better to set up the final production area now. You might also have noticed that those magnets require graphite as one of the components. So we will need to build a furnace setup for those too. There are times when I'm a bit angry with myself that I didn't build logistics distributors on them all. Having those small bots deliver building materials to us would be kind of handy. But we will do that for the final mall. Okay, that's pretty much it for this version 1.0 of the Blue Magnet setup. Now we just copy-paste the correct recipe over to all the assemblers, and we can move on. And I think it bears repeating, the manufacturing towers we are building right now are not final. They lack the correct ratios, and we don't have the Mark III assemblers yet. Once we have everything we need, we will fine-tune these, so they become infinitely replicable. We definitely don't need a full storage of green motors in this tower, we should redistribute them where they are needed more. Like in the blue magnet factories. I was about to place the furnaces for the graphite production, but we have some water in the way. And this is one of the biggest hurdles we will need to overcome today. The painfully slow production of foundations. Only managed to make 200 since the last pickup. I could tell that this is going to take a while. Damn, not enough room. We need more foundations. I suppose we could spend some time placing more wind turbines. The problem is, we have so many at this point, that even if we placed hundreds of them, it wouldn't make any noticeable difference. Only one left. Let's just place it, and we can move on. We are also running low on magnetic rings, so we should expand the smelting setup for those. Nothing major, just enough to make a noticeable difference. Another 200 foundations. Should be enough for the next tower. Well, it doesn't really matter what we make next, it doesn't have to be the graphite. We might as well take care of the titanium alloys. That is another component needed to make the fuel rods. Apart from the titanium, which is already on the logistics network, we will also need steel and acid. None of those are available yet. We will need to set up a steel smelting tower for sure, but I think we can just feed the acid in from a simple planetary tower in the end of the acid belt in the starter base. Anyways, the alloys are a 3-component production, so we could technically reuse one of the existing belt layouts from another tower. The furnaces are theoretically the same size as the assemblers, but in reality, not entirely the same. But it will be close enough to recycle the belts at least. Well, we're out of inserters, time for a restock. Nice. We just researched the first boost to the carrying capacity of our drones. It's only an increase of 5 units overall, but these upgrades start out slow. By the end, they will be able to carry 200 units of something on a single trip. Couple that with the massively increased speed, and we will have an extremely efficient network on our hand. Now, this is where we run into trouble with the furnaces. They are a bit too narrow with their inserter placements, and we cannot fit in one of them if we pack them this densely together. We will need to leave a single tile empty between them, unfortunately. Well, 16 smelters is still way more than what we need at this very moment, so it will do. I will try to come up with a better layout for this, but we just might end up using this anyways. Okay. We still need the graphite and the steel smelting. The end goal is still very much out of our reach at this point, but don't worry, we will get there eventually. That was lucky. We managed to squeeze in one of the smaller furnace towers. We just need to reset the whole thing for the new production, and it's all set. Now it just needs a source of raw coal. Should be fairly simple, we have a lot of untapped deposits all over the place. But first, let's quickly move this oil belt, it's in the way of our upcoming steel smelter. This big one looks like a good choice. Let's place the miners, and start making some graphite. $250 foundations. We really need to get on top of this power issue, or we will be in trouble. And the drones are off to pick up the coal. We can move on to the next thing. That's nice. We didn't even have to place a single foundation for this one to fit in. Obviously, this one will be making steel. Technically, we could go for something that would only require raw iron as an input, but I would like to keep these furnace towers a uniform size, so we will ship in the plates instead. Okay, we need acid next. Let's see what we can do about that. I did seriously consider setting up a separate chemical area just to make it, but eventually decided to simply place a tower at the end of the already existing belt carrying the stuff. Well, it seems we don't need to place one. There's already one right next door, so we can simply feed that line into it, and use that to ship it back to the alloy furnaces. I suppose we could also take advantage of the nearby alloy belt. We will need it to primarily go toward the mall, but it won't hurt to move any excess into that tower, and use it to make the fuel rods. I suppose this way, we will not really see any acid make it to the newly built alloy furnaces, but the result is the same. Plus this place will get ripped up sooner or later, so it's only a matter of time before we start using the new one. Well, I think we are ready. We can start building the Deuteron fuel rod production tower. But first, we need room, so this oil belt needs to move again. That's everything we need. Deuterium, blue magnets, and the alloys. Now we just need to put them together, and create the best mid-game power source. Emphasis being on mid-game. It obviously doesn't even come close to the stuff we will have access to in the end game. We need a lot of deuterium for this, so that's the thing that will go on the middle belt. And that's it. We are now proud owners of some Deuteron fuel cells. But that's only half the battle. We still need a place to use them, and those are the fusion reactors. To make those, we will need to create some carbon nanotubes. Sadly, we cannot make those by hand, so we need a temporary place to do it. Thankfully, they only need graphene and titanium, so it should be a relatively painless process to set up. My first instinct was to just set up a couple chests to feed the chem lab, but eventually decided to just feed the thing with belts. I really don't know why I kept those chests around. There is really no need to feed the materials through them. Oh well, I keep saying, this is all temporary. We will need the nanotubes and other processes later, so I just fed them into this tower, so we can start building up a small stockpile. At this point, we were technically ready to start making some fusion reactors by hand, but disaster struck. All the power outages did affect the rate of ammo production, and we ran out. Now the dark fog is out of the farm enclosure, rampaging through the base, and we need to stop them. And we just had another base launch an attack on another planet. But, thankfully, those places are pretty well defended, so I wasn't all that worried about those. The most obvious fix for this whole situation is to give the ammo assemblers their own private power network. We just need to place the windmills in a way that they don't connect to the main base, and we should be okay. We also needed to make sure they get all the copper they require, so I set up priorities on the splitters on the copper line to go toward the end. Thankfully, the worst of the crisis is behind us. The ammo supply should be up to snuff again, and we only need to replace the destroyed buildings, which is easily accomplished. And we're back to normal. Now the only possible weak point of our farm is the copper supply, so we will need to take care of that eventually, but this will do for now. Time to finally focus on the fusion reactors. They will sort out our power troubles in no time. Okay, we have a handful in the crafting queue. Let's see what they are capable of. We already have over 600 fuel rods. Very happy to see that high an amount ready to go. Happy days are upon us. We are now officially a fusion-powered civilization. And these couple reactors were enough to get us close to satisfying the power need of our factory. A little bit more should put us in the blue for sure. There. We now have moments when everything is fully powered. But we can do better than that. And let's not forget that we can also use these to fuel the mecha. These fuel cells are capable of generating 3 times as much power as the old rods were, and they will last a lot longer too. This upgrade will be a huge boost for us. I mean, look at the power bar climb up at the bottom of the screen. Way faster than we had before. Now we should focus on making more reactors. I want to see a 50% consumption before we log off. That is a lot of fusion reactors we have now. Way more than what we need to power the base. In fact, we will have so many, that we will pretty much triple our overall power generation amount. Technically, we could get rid of all our wind turbines after we're done, and still be in the blue. But let's leave them around, just in case. Oh yeah. Before, we only managed to satisfy 50% of our overall consumption. Now we have almost double of what we need. The problem we are facing now is the alloy production. We need a steady supply of it, and we just emptied out the belt containing that stuff to make the reactors. I suppose we will need to increase the acid production quite a lot in the next episode. But we are not quite at the end of this one yet, we still have work to do. We have 4 more gas harvesters, let's place them now, so we can keep making the deuterium we need. And here comes one of the worst things about these gas and ice giants. Trying to land on them. For some reason, there are moments when it's really hard to touch down. To ensure a somewhat guaranteed landing, we need to approach the landing zone from straight up, and try to slam into the upper atmosphere. Otherwise it's like a botched re-entry in real life, and we just bounce off like a skipping stone on a lake. Well, since we landed right next to the farm, there is one more thing I wanted to deal with real quick. The babs we placed to collect the loot is picking up a lot of junk. Some of that junk is something we could burn in the thermal generators, so how about we set up a small burning operation for those things before we log off. We can quickly steal some of these generators from the oil overflow control, and repurpose them for this. Basically, we want to take out everything we can burn from the babs, and feed them into these buildings. It will not only give us a small trickle of extra power, but it will also make room in the babs for more useful loot. Right now, the things we can get rid of are wood, leaves, graphite, and some of those special dark fog fuel sources that give a crafting speed bonus if burned in the mecha. They are a pretty bad fuel source though, so I don't feel too bad at getting rid of them. I think it would be better to have more generator stacks, instead of a handful of long ones. The burnable stuff coming out of the babs is not sorted in any way, so it is quite unlikely that more than 2 generators will be able to feed each other in a row. Anyways, I think this will do it for today. We are already massively over the time limit anyways, so we should stop now. And I got to say, we did struggle in this episode, but in the end, it was all worth it. Now we have plenty of headroom to deal with the upcoming expansions. In the next video, the very first thing we will need to deal with will be the acid. As much as I want to just use the water pumps to make more, we are not interstellar yet, so it's not something we can do right now. And if we increase the acid labs, we might need to do more oil too, which might mean the building of a permanent oil refining tower. We now have a source of hydrogen from the nearby ice giant, so we could technically switch over to the final refinery setup. Although I would be more comfortable if we had more harvesters, so we can keep the old refineries around too. Oh boy, we have so many things left to do. Anyways, if you haven't done it already, I would love it if you subscribe to the channel, and clicking the like button will also help letting me know that the video was worth making. If you would like to help me make a living off this one day, please consider becoming a channel member, where you will get an early access to the videos as I make them. And if you want to give a one-time donation, you can find a link to my Ko-fi page in the description. Thank you for your support, and I will see you in the next one.